Absolutely.
All right. Welcome to Cincinnati NAACP, Truth to Power.
We back.
On the Sin Digital Network. My name is Nicole. I'm the second Vice President, Criminal Justice Chair for the Cincinnati NAACP.
And I'm Shawn Butler. I'm an Executive Committee member in leadership in the NAACP Cincinnati chapter. Happy to be here.
Yes, and Truth to Power is the podcast that will give you information, motivation, and inspiration to be the change in your community because you are the movement.
Absolutely.
And our president is Robert Richardson Sr., and as always, he gives his well wishes and greetings from him to all of you. And Shawn, we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we do.
It's a lot going on in the city, the state, the nation, and we don't have a lot of time always.
We got about a few minutes to knock all of that out, but it's a good thing that the show is in capable hands, Nicole. You got it.
Yeah. So let's hit it. Well, we're just exiting Black History Month, but as you know, Black History, Black Excellence is 365 days a year, so let's keep it rocking, let's keep it going.
Every day. And
let's see here. The first topic we want to talk about is the no charges for the murder of Stephon Clark. Now, this has been a year-long investigation into the police-involved shooting death of Stephon Clark of Sacramento, California. This concluded March the 2nd with the District Attorney General, Anne Marie Schubert, stating that there will be no charges pressed against the two Sacramento police officers against this unarmed black man.
Now, can you give a quick background of for the listeners of what happened? I mean, this is yet another tragic thing that has happened to a black man in America, but it was over a cell phone, correct?
Correct. So, basically they mistaken his cell phone as a gun.
As a weapon.
This is a case where, of course, police arrived on the scene. They received a 911 call of someone breaking into cars in the neighborhood. And in their pursuit of the suspect, they came across Stephon Clark, who was running away and jumped over a fence into his grandmother's backyard. And from there, that's where the deadly encounter took place. And after one command to show his hands, the very next command was gun, gun, gun. Or really not a command, but they yelled out gun, gun, gun.
Yeah, warning.
And that's when both officers, which one was black and one was white, fired 10 shots apiece at Stephon Clark with 8 bullets, striking and killing him. And this was over the belief, like we said earlier, that a metallic cell phone was a gun.
Unfortunate.
Ultimately, the Attorney General stated, we had one, this is her exact quote, we had one question to answer. And that question is, was there a crime committed? And so she goes on to say, was a crime committed? There's no question that a human being died. But when we follow the law and our ethical responsibilities, we will not be charging these officers with criminal liability for the death of Stephon Clark. Sorry. Well, she didn't end it with sorry. I just did that. But yeah, that's basically...
That's how you feel.
How it came off. So another get out of jail pass has been rendered. And I don't know how any citizen, but particularly black citizens, how can anyone feel safe around police?
Now, have there been any convictions nationwide of resulting from the shooting and the killing of unarmed, innocent black men?
Just a very, very few. I think in the case of the gentleman that was shot in the back, that was one. Is that Eric? No, not Eric Garner. I can't think of his name right now, but the gentleman that was shot in the back.
Yeah, I think they were. Away. Yeah, they charged him with murder.
Yeah.
That's one. And it's really, we could look up the facts on this, but I think that was one conviction that I think you're bringing up.
And it's really only a handful. There's a whole lot more that aren't even indicted, or if they're indicted, they're found not guilty or acquitted, like in the Sam DuBose case. And so this injustice continues. And so, like I said before, what
keep discussing
is there anything we can do to remedy this scenario that continues to happen over and over and over again? What do you think?
I think it's absolutely. I think that on both sides, though. So when things like this happen, there I think a multitude of reasons why these unfortunate events happen. And growing up myself, I grew up in the inner city with close communication and contact with police officers all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I learned I learned how to deal with them the best way I can. Now, I have friends who are police officers. I support the police, but they need some training. They need training on their side. They need sensitivity training. They need how to social diversity inclusion training. These have to be mandatory for police departments all across the nation.
Right.
And I think it's an optional thing for most departments. On the other side, on the neighborhood side, like I was saying when I was younger, I never really got instructions as to how to approach police officers. Not in school, and I would have talks with my family members, but it wasn't really a formalized thing. I think that young black men in America today are treated different, and they have to be trained to understand that.
Who has to be trained? Black men or the police?
Both sides, but black men have to know that the environment that they're in, no matter where they are in America, and it's a hostile one.
Do white men need to be trained too?
Well, black men are more victims than white guys in the news, as far as I'm concerned. So everybody needs training, but in particular, black men, survival training, because this is a matter of survival in my opinion.
Well, I'm gonna give you an experiment to do, because I did this the other day in my research about Stephon Clark. So I want everybody listening to try this. I want you to try Googling "black man shot for."
Yeah.
And when you do that, a lengthy list will appear. Black man shot for everything from tail lights, black man shot for playing loud music, black man shot for getting licensed, black man shot for parking in a handicapped space. Those were like the top ones. Next.
Parked in a handicapped space?
Yeah. Next, Google white man shot for. And guess what? There's no lengthy list.
So like I was saying, like I might need training, but not how to survive, because this is not a situation that they think they could lose their life from. Contact with the police.
Yeah.
I'm a black man, there's a chance that I might not come home.
I thought that was astonishing. There's like no incidents of, baseless, senseless killings of just everyday activity of white men and boys. But one thing did pop up. Let me say, it said when I typed in white man shot for, what popped up, white man shot a 7-year-old. So, and I mention this because there is no changes. If there's no changes in the law to address what some consider reasonable use of deadly force, this story does happen over and over again. So, but
holding folks accountable. I think that the basis of your original question is on both sides. Who's accountable? Is there accountability for folks in the community as to how to deal with police? Is there accountability? Most definitely, I believe, from the law enforcement side to the community. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But what's the process for bringing accountability to these situations?
Right. So, one of the things through the Criminal Justice Committee, I've worked on proposals addressing this very, situation. But what I do know is, first we have to change the narrative. Because right now the narrative is a police's job. Police jobs are dangerous. They have to make split-second decisions. If the person just comply, a BB gun or a toy gun, they look similar to a real gun, and apparently a cell phone does too. So, we have to change the narrative, because right now, those are all the excuses that are made to block any change. The narrative need to change to, officers understanding that their first duty is to preserve life and to bring people to justice. Everyone deserves their day in court, but you can't have your day in court 6 feet deep in a coffin.
Well, and you know what, Nicole, and you bring up a good point there. I want to say that I believe that most of the rationale used by cops who shoot first, without much assessment, is fear. They're afraid for their life. That is, I think, one of the common defenses used by most police officers in these situations.
Firefighters go into a burning house, they're afraid for their life, and they're not equipped with tools to harm anybody. I mean, it's a lot of professions that it's dangerous, and you go in and you don't know what's going to happen, and it doesn't mean it's a license to kill.
Absolutely, I have a healthy respect for that reasoning. You know, fear is a motivator. But when you're in a position like a firefighter or a police officer, I would expect that you be just a little more fearless than
you have to be
than common folk if you're going to take that position.
And you should be held to a higher standard, because right now I think there's a lot of excuses made for people in that position, and you know, we make a lot of we really bend the law to a degree where it's almost a situation for citizens that is unsafe, and this is what we pay for with our tax dollars. So I mean, it doesn't sit right with me to feel like I can be pulled over and a police officer can mistake anything in my car, in my possession, as a lethal weapon and kill me, and just be like, oops, you know, I thought it was this, and that's and I'm just an afterthought.
I'll tell you this, that you know, I listen to rap music, and I'm so conditioned to be wary of police encounters that when I'm listening to rap music and they have police sirens in it, I'm looking for police. it's messed up. Yeah, I'm like, oh, where they at?
That raises your anxiety. It shouldn't be like that.
But it's true. It's true, and that has to change.
Jeez,
can't even listen to music, and you know, but you have to be careful.
Well, the other thing I think needs to happen is that, of course, we have to change the law. And if you recall, in the statement made by the district attorney, her but was, well, when we follow the law and our ethical responsibilities, we will not be charging these officers with criminal liability. And so they fall back on the law. And I took legal studies in college, and one of the first things I remember learning is that all law is not good law.
Right. It has to change. You got to get the bad law out. I mean, we'd still be in bondage if laws didn't change.
You telling me?
Right.
You telling me?
And so, I agree. Most definitely.
And so, you know, to me, this is no different from laws, like you said, enforced in the past in the United States, where slave owners captured and killed runaway slaves, in free states. So those were the fugitive slave laws. How is this any different from laws enforced by the United States that allow vigilante lynching? And it was only literally a few months ago, last year, December 19th, 2018, when the Senate passed unanimously that lynching should be a federal crime. It took over a century for lynching to be outlawed.
So that's an example of how law, you know, if it's bad or if it's of that nature, it has to go. It has to change.
I mean, you almost have to laugh to keep from crying on some of these issues. But
it's emotional. These are tough issues to talk about. You know, Googling when I'm on the computer or the TV or listening to a radio station, and there are these topics that we have to address. It's a heavy deal. It's a heavy deal. So, you know, in the NAACP, we work to make life more equitable for everybody in the community, and that's why we're talking about these important topics.
Exactly. So, what your Cincinnati NAACP has been working on is something to address that. And if you haven't heard about it, we proposed police accountability for wrongful use of deadly force, which has been named in honor of John Crawford III, which is the gentleman who went to a Beaver Creek Walmart, which is close to Dayton, and was just shopping, picked up a pellet gun that was on the shelf, probably considering purchasing it, was on the cell phone speaking to, a loved one, and, before he know it, he turns around and is shot to death.
It was the fear.
And that's another one. Black man shot while shopping at Walmart.
You can be anywhere. You can be doing anything, and
That is unsettling.
And you could meet this particular fate at any time if you're a black man in America, it seems.
It is.
You could be going to Walmart. You could be checking your cell phone. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Should you go outside?
Well, we can't live in fear either.
That's what I'm saying. See, but that's why we have to be fearless. And that's what I think we're doing. We're speaking on it. Some of these encounters and situations quiet people down. So
even beyond speaking on it, we have a
Take
duty.
action.
We have a right to change bad laws, and this is bad law.
We have a legal redress committee, correct, as an organization, and we just held a free legal clinic, expungement clinic, just a few days ago, and it was at the Community Action Agency here in Cincinnati, a county agency that helps folks who need a hand up and to maintain stability in their households. We held it there, and that's where we hold our monthly meetings. And we had over 25 people show up. Before then, we had 50, and the one before that. So committees like that in the NAACP help to do what you said, Nicole, and that is empower people about how they, manage navigating the system. The NAACP, we help with that.
And that's part of the advancement of, people of color. Like, the other day was National Day of Empathy, in which it was basically looking or, taking time to consider those affected by mass incarceration, returning citizens, but also victims of crime. And this is the day where you put yourself in their shoes and understand that, is this country supposed to be a country of second chances, of forgiveness, or do we want to continue to punish people, after they, serve their time? Do we want to continue to bring hardship to people? Do we want to see people succeed, or do we want them to remain second-class citizens and fail? And all that is determined on the way we allow people, moving forward to become productive citizens after they made a mistake, because none of us is perfect. None of us is flawless, And if you ever find yourself in that situation for whatever the reason may be, you want to know that the criminal justice system that you're in is fair, balanced, and is not going to railroad you, use you as a commodity for mass production, and stroke you just because they can.
And make money off you the whole way.
Yeah.
That is, per capita per diem. That's how students and other, I say assets of the state, are treated. It's a money
industrial
It's
system.
a prison industrial complex.
Exactly. I mean, people have this fear, going back to the word fear, of, illegal immigrants and people coming in and taking something from them. But, really, a lot of the jobs or whatnot, major companies are invested in prisons and utilize prison labor, which is essentially slave labor, being paid, $1 an hour or whatever, really cents on the hour, in which that's the one part that's remains in the Constitution that allows slavery, is if you are convicted of a crime. And those individuals half the time are in such inhumane conditions and situations, and they are, I feel like, the truly forgotten citizens. And God forbid you find yourself or someone you care about in those circumstances, and it's just like a hard situation to get out of. And once you are out, they still have locks on you with probation and parole, and one little mess up and you're right back.
You're back in it.
You know what I'm saying? And everything outside in society blocks you from getting an education, blocks you from getting employment. You know, it has to be special groups and organizations that, you know, go out of their way to assist and help people in this transition, but there's so many people.
So you're the chair of the Criminal Justice Committee, and I just wondered if you had a few suggestions for how accountability can be better, you know, realized.
Yeah. Well, going back to what we were talking about earlier, I digress. We went all over the place. So, you know, just in what we can do to address, you know, unarmed citizens being shot down by law enforcement.
Right.
So what we have is called Police Accountability for Wrongful Use of Deadly Force Act, which is named after John Crawford III, which I told you about. So there's 5 components to this, real quick. So mandatory protocol on standards of approach, especially in open carry states. You know, having a lawful concealed carry weapon should not be a death sentence.
Right.
Okay.
Please, because I have a CCW.
Yeah. People in my family, I plan on getting that, but there's some reluctance in doing that because I don't want someone to see my gun and just think, oh, gun, and I'm dead.
But you have a cell phone though, don't you?
Well, yeah, you're right. It don't matter, huh? Well, 2, removal of ambiguous language in the law that allows broadly interpreted reasonable presumption of fear of a threat, which is the key. It really is the key to why law enforcement in different capacities are not held accountable. It's because of that portion of the law. We need to raise the level and use it and have the language says that deadly force should only be used when there is an absolute threat. And we know what an absolute threat is. You know?
Not so subjective as I was afraid.
Yeah.
Or, you know, the fear of threat.
You
know, it's based on interpretation, correct?
Right. And that interpretation, depending on where you are in the United States, can be twisted and...
So we have to elevate that.
Yeah, and that's not good enough. Police should be held to a higher standard, and like we said before in the narrative, preserving life, that should be first and foremost. Not my hand on the trigger and pow, pow, pow like it's the Wild Wild West. 3rd is mandatory drug testing on law enforcement officers who discharge a gun, and that's anytime a gun is discharged, because we want to make sure that the mental discernment of that officer is right. And,
absolutely.
You know, especially in the era where there's functional addicts, we need to know. Mandatory de-escalation training, equivalent to firearm training. Right now, as it stands, there is more firearm training, like 40 hours to like 5 or 8 compared to de-escalation training. And it's part of the reason why I feel like we have a culture of police that fire first and ask questions later rather than trying to de-escalate the situation. They need to, if they would have done that in this situation with the young man Stephon Clark, he would be alive and he would have been brought to justice. If they would have done that with, John Crawford III, de-escalation, they would have realized that he was just a customer and that this was a false alarm and he would be alive. If they would have done this with Tamir Rice, it's too many instances where all it would have took was a moment of pause. And even an attempt to de-escalate instead of just shoot. They do it for people who have shot, and this is how I know that it's bullshit, really, because people who have shot up a whole church can be apprehended and brought to justice and apparently get a meal at Burger King too before they go in. And after you slaughtered a whole room of people, they could do it for them. They can do it for us. So we cannot accept that, you just needed to comply. You just needed to, respond, or you just need to not have a gun. We are citizens that pay taxpayer dollars like everyone else. We pay their salary. So, we have the same rights. We should be afforded the same rights and the benefit of the doubt like everyone else.
And I would say that along with that, training for firearms, firearm training, cultural diversity training. I think it could be implemented with that training for firearm training, because that's what we're talking about. Situations that people claim to misinterpret and based on fear, shoot.
Yeah, and that there is a cultural,
There's a cultural element to it.
That it's a lot of police officers, that come from communities where there isn't a lot of diversity, but they come to urban communities to police, and for some, it's an experience and it changes their lives, and they, I believe for the most part, most police officers, and let me put this disclaimer here, because we know very well that, most law enforcement officers are, honorable, and they work to serve and protect. They take their oath seriously. But then there is some that wear that badge and they use it to abuse their power. They wear that badge and they hold certain biases and prejudices, and it's more to it than that. And that's a very dangerous element, to give that much power to someone with that type of internal issue and hatefulness toward others.
Especially if they haven't been in the community that they're policing.
It's
and they're not used to it. They have no knowledge of the citizens that they are serving.
Right. So that cultural sensitivity training,
I think it's needed.
Is more than needed. And we just had a gentleman come in and do our Black History event. He's an officer here, Mr. Fred Gilmore. He does the training for most of the officers here, and he's incorporated a Black History training. And in most respects of it, people are taking it in and really appreciate it. And then he do still have a small element that they just don't want to hear it. You know what I'm saying? They just don't want to make that connection. And
that happened February 28th. That was a couple days ago.
It was really, really good. And so we need to support him and support those efforts, because that's what's going to keep us safe. Lastly, is on the proposal for the John Crawford proposal on accountability for wrongful use of deadly force, is anyone who's found to have violated the rights of any citizen should be terminated from that position.
Oh, yeah.
Because you don't get to violate our rights, not even just a little bit. And, when police officers begin to, walk and act in the role that they're supposed to, which, like I said before, I believe 90% of them, that's the way they move anyway. So, having that type of stipulation isn't going to be difficult, because most police officers work in a manner where they are respectful of citizens' rights. There's only a few. And what we have to do is weed out the bad, because when you protect the bad officers, just like it's good and bad people, it's good and bad officers. But when you protect them, it spoils the bunch. It puts everyone in danger.
I believe in the 80-20 theory. 20% of the population make it hard for 80%.
Right.
So 8 out of 10 police officers are I would assume, good people.
Yeah.
And honorable officers. I think we're talking about that 20%.
Yeah, that
2 out of 10 who don't care and who need to be held to these standards.
And they're being protected,
and
they shouldn't be. Like I said, to wear that badge, I know is an honorable position and the oath that they take. And people that take advantage of that, they defoul that badge, and they have no right to continue on. And I just know, even here in Cincinnati with the Sam DuBose case, and we have Mr. Ivory DuBose, the uncle of Sam DuBose. One of the things he said when it related to his nephew's case, that if that police officer, what he feared the most was that he would get off and that he would be able to police again. That was his greatest fear. And so, that portion is to help address that individuals that violate our rights, they don't get to come back in the force. And I know that there's unions, and there's so many people that be like, oh, the union, Trump showed me that, you can break up, whatever policy is been long standing in the union. All it takes is will
Yeah.
and someone to enforce it. So the hell with what anybody is saying about that. All of this is the will to do it. And like I said before, it takes citizens like ourselves and lawmakers that we put into office to have the audacity and the courage to do it.
The will.
If you care about this society, if you care about people, then this is something that you must do. You have to do. Isn't can I do it? Should I do it?
No, it has
you
to be
have
done.
to.
It has to be done.
You have to. So real quick, because we already running out of time.
No, we're close to time, but we're good. We're good.
Right.
Those are we needed to hear
We had
those
to talk about
proposals.
that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's lighten it up a little bit. So what about
Let's
that
smile.
R.
Let's
Kelly?
smile a little bit. Oh,
What about that R. Kelly
Oh.
interview with Gayle King?
Oh man.
Did he have a straight sucker attack or what?
Yeah, I think it was a meltdown of epic proportions and a lot of pressure. Yeah, he's under a lot of pressure. It was in the morning. I mean, Gayle King. It was like right when you woke up.
Yes, I was not
I was
expecting
having
that.
coffee, and the nation saw it. I really do empathize with him though, because it's a tough thing he's going through. But then it's also he needs to be held accountable.
Yes.
We talking about accountability.
Yeah, I mean, everyone deserved their day in court. I think, which if the producer, if you could play a little bit of that video, you want to get that in.
Use your common sense. How stupid would it be for me to, with my crazy past and what I've been through, right now I just think I need to be a monster and hold girls against their will, chain them up in my basement and don't let them eat and don't let them out unless they need some shoes down the street from their uncle.
Robert,
Stop it. Y'all quit playing. Quit playing.
Robert.
I didn't do this stuff. This is not me, y'all. I'm fighting for my life. Y'all killing me with this. I gave y'all 30 years of my career.
Robert.
30 years of my career. Y'all trying to kill me. You killing me, man. This is not about music. I'm trying to have a relationship with my kids, and I can't do it. Y'all just don't want to believe the truth. You don't want to believe it.
At this point, we briefly pause the interview to give Kelly a moment. His publicist helped calm him down.
I hope this camera keep going.
No, we're going to let the camera keep rolling.
This is not, doesn't even make sense. Why would I hold all these women? Their mothers and fathers told me, we're going to destroy your career.
But Kelly's emotions remained raw.
It's real girls out there missing. It's real young girls out there being abducted, being raped, okay? They really are on chains. They really do have chains on their wrists, and they can't get out.
Robert,
and they're ending up buried in dead.
Robert, we have to have a conversation,
This is
really.
not me.
I don't want you just ranting at the camera.
I came here for them to hear me talk.
But
I need help.
What kind of help?
This is the kind of help I need.
Yes, what kind of help?
I need somebody to help me not have a big heart, because my heart is so big. People betray me, and I keep forgiving them.
You sound like you're playing the victim here. You sound like R. Kelly, you do. When I listen.
Okay, so you seen for yourself that crazy interview. I have to say that his breakdown was just kind of unreal, and I do agree that he was trying to change the narrative and make himself the victim when your track record shows a history of involvement with underage women, and that's just the key component to the problem. Apparently, the reason why they're even able to indict him, and this was able to go before a grand jury, was evidence showing that he was having sexual relations with underage girls. He was saying 14-year-old,
Well, they have a tape.
They have a tape.
But a trial is set to go on. But they have a tape.
They have a tape.
And
they had a tape the last time too. And you know how he got out of that?
how? Oh, what? Didn't he settle?
No. He was found not guilty, or they dismissed it. But you know how he got out of that?
How you do that?
Because the person, allegedly in the video didn't show up. And when you don't show up, your key witness, when they don't show up, like anything else, it gets dismissed. So it isn't that he was found not guilty because evidence showed otherwise. The key witness to the tape would not come to court, and she may have her own reason, maybe embarrassment. Like, who wants to be there and say this person peed on me?
This is
you.
Oh man, Chappelle.
I'm thinking it's like, no, it ain't even funny, but
no, it's
wow.
a serious situation.
Ugh.
I think it's
yuck. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
that's wild. It's wild. I think it's hard to really talk about this. It really is.
It's strange.
It's crazy.
It's strange.
Yeah, but I did see that he had a meltdown while being interviewed by Gayle King, and I think when you have years of allegations mounting and you have been brought to the fore now to talk about it, I don't know if he's prepared to. I don't know if he's, and obviously by that meltdown you could see he was not ready for that primetime interview, and
no.
I think he should have had his lawyer on set with him and present. Now, if he's, it seems like the chips are stacked against him, but there's a part, like you mentioned before, he's gotten away with.
I don't think it's
somebody hasn't proven. They have to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that it was him, especially if he's maintaining defense. Now, what happens if he's innocent?
Then
he
lives to go on another day. But I think this
should
time
we have a conversation, and I think that organizations like us, and then just ours, or the community, greater community, needs to talk more about how to avoid what I think Lifetime was showing, surviving R. Kelly, how to not get in those situations.
That's the key thing, because beyond all of this, and it's about 40 or 50 women accusing him of some sort of sexual abuse or assault. What saddens me in all of this whole internal struggle, is that this isn't new. These women have made these allegations before, and no one heard them. They've been doing this for years. It was not until this Lifetime series came out that they had a bigger platform for their stories to be heard. It fell on deaf ears because at the end of the day, you're talking about a well-known, famous, beloved singer that, most of his songs is at every wedding or every, party, played step dances or whatever. Is everywhere, and so it's really hard for people.
It's a big part of the culture.
It's a big part of the culture, and even what we knew about Aaliyah, him marrying her, what I'm saying, and in the series it revealed that they caught him having sex with her on the tour bus.
Well, see, I'm not a lawyer.
Underage.
I'm not a lawyer, and I'll just say that, but that show had folks on there admitting to their part in this victim sweepstakes, it seems. Because you had victims talking, and then you had folks who, in my mind, were helping R. Kelly. So aren't they culpable?
I would think so. It didn't look good for them.
I'm not a lawyer, like I said. I don't. Did they already
Well, I don't know.
Cop pleas, and then did they do these interviews for free?
Those charges.
It's just
going stimulating back then. That case was dismissed. So at the time of the series, it wasn't an ongoing investigation of any sort.
But if R. Kelly is proven guilty if he's proven guilty, if I was a handler, do these actions that he would be charged with?
Well, some of those was former, so
it would just be this action.
Yeah, whatever, whoever's. The women, I think it's like 2 or 3 women.
I think I'm gonna have to say that if he's found guilty, and there's a show with some of the folks he's worked with before who is now just now coming out with what went on.
Yeah.
I have to say that they're guilty too. They just haven't been locked up.
I think in the court of public opinion, they're just as wrong and guilty as he is. You know what I'm saying? There was one guy that said that when he was trying to marry Aaliyah, like the look on her face was like, help me. Like, I really don't want to do this. And he just felt bad, but just kind of turned to his back. And this was part of his paid entourage. But at the same time, it's no crime for not reporting something. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, I
so
think,
they
I
wouldn't.
think the
They
court
wouldn't. They
report
wouldn't.
public opinion then.
Yeah, I know. So like
That's
I said,
how I
so
feel. So
I feel
that's
the
all
same
I gotta
way.
say
It's
about
shameful
that.
for them. It's shameful for them.
Yeah.
But the greatest thing I love about what the Me Too movement is doing right now is helping victims have a voice.
Mm-hmm.
Because for so many years, so many years, and not just women but men,
They hold
the
it.
churches, these Catholic churches, people swept this type of stuff under the rug.
Mm-hmm.
And what pains me more, even in this movement and everything else, where people is just saying like, hey, something happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
Black women has always been like the last one to get any empathy, because it's always, well, she's fast, she must have wanted, she's out there, what was she wearing, this and that, whatever. And it's just like, it's like, oh, she want money. That's the thing right here. All they want is money, right?
Yeah.
They're
I'm
groupie.
not saying they do. I'm just saying I understand that
Mm-hmm.
these are some of the thoughts that people might have.
Quickly.
Yeah.
But most white women that fall prey to this, they're not assumed to have all these interior motives, from the beginning. It's just like, well, maybe something did happen.
Well, so I think it's a tough conversation because, especially in how you interpret it as
Mm-hmm.
a black woman.
Mm-hmm. And you are a father of a black girl.
Too.
I'm a mother of a black girl.
Yeah.
Black girls.
Absolutely. So that's why I wanted to say that, as a community, we have to talk about how not to have this go on.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that's been around, just being real in the community for a long time, these situations.
Mm-hmm.
People are not ID'd, and those who are victims don't know that they are, or don't feel comfortable saying that they are, right? So creating an environment that allows us to kind of stop it or nip it in the bud, so to speak, is essential. But it hasn't been that way for a long time.
And people have to stand up. Like this movement is giving people the room to stand up, and so, right now is a good time for people to have a voice. And a lot of times, unfortunately, people see that they're not the only one. I mean, it's so appropriately named Me Too, because when we
tough.
don't speak up, when we don't say anything, it just allows for the perpetrator to harm somebody else. So we have a duty, to speak out against these things and to try with all our might to get people that are harms to women and others, to get them off the street so they don't harm others.
Mm-hmm.
So, it is definitely unfortunate with whatever happens to that individual, but I just implore that you have the courage to speak up and have a voice, to talk to somebody, you know what I'm saying, and give yourself a voice so you can give others a voice.
Absolutely.
In this scenario.
It's been a heavy day. We've been talking about serious stuff.
Yeah.
Serious stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what we do, though.
Yeah, that's what we do. And if nobody told you they love you today, the Cincinnati NAACP love you.
We love you.
And we appreciate you for listening. And we're just going to wrap it up like that because it's time to go.
Absolutely. We've come to say what we needed to say.
Yes.
Anything coming up that folks should know about?
I mean, next
Before we
month
go?
is March, and we have the always our general membership meeting every fourth Thursday
Absolutely.
of each month. And
We have Black Wealth Taxes, led by Sherry Richardson,
yeah.
on the 28th of March coming up. So if you need help with taxes or insight about how to get those done, it is tax season.
Yes, she is an
And,
accountant.
She's a professional
Richardson
accountant.
and Associates, right over there in Ludlow.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to get her in here actually, because a lot of people are very disappointed with their returns,
Mm-hmm.
and there has been a lot of changes with the new Trump tax laws that you need to know.
So we're going to get some guests in here that can help you take care of your taxes and give you better insight as to how to avoid any pitfalls, or and then, so you know where to go.
And the great thing about Sherry Richardson is it's not just about filing your returns and getting a refund or whatever the situation is, but she also shows you how to build wealth.
Good stuff.
And we all need to know that. So, again, Thank you for listening to Truth to Power, Cincinnati NAACP Truth to Power on Sin Digital Media.
Sin Digital.
I'm Nicole.
And I'm Shawn.
And we're out.